Hey all. So here we are again. We're winding down in this semester. I hope you're all taking care of yourself and being good and caring about each other and everything. The end of the semester is coming. You should all be looking at your syllabus. We're pretty much sticking to what it says there. I amended it. You should know this. There are still some things to look at. I'm going to talk about just two poems today, very quickly. So please, if you don't have your textbook with you, get your textbook out. We should look at them. We'll read them. They're very short poems and talk a little bit about them. And maybe I can give you some ideas about things to write about. There will be 3 other poems for the next video. I'll probably do that by the end of the week. And those are, as I mentioned earlier, are sort of poems about war, or at least they deal with wartime, 3 different times in history. And you should look up the words you don't know. One of them is called The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner. Look up what a ball turret gunner is. Look it up online. You'll see a picture of it. You'll find out right away so the whole poem makes sense visually. The other one is in Latin, but at the bottom of the page, it'll tell you the name, how you translate the title, Dulce et decorum est. It's very simple. And the man he killed is just, As I look at the list, I'm just realizing that those 2 poems are not in the book. So I will, first of all, they really are easy to find online. So type them in, poof, they'll show up right there on the screen. I'll try to get you a link for them, but I don't think you're going to need it. These poems are in the public domain. You could just go online and find them. So the only one in your book is The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner. The other 2, you've got to get online. Please, it'll take you a second. Just do it. And they're real easy. We'll read them together probably at the end of the week. In the meantime, you have one more paper to write. As far as I can tell, and I have to get this taken care of first, as far as I can tell, I don't know whether or not there's going to be a regular final time established for us. If there is, we'll deal with it. But in the meantime, these last couple of things are parts of the things that I'm going to be asking you to be thinking about. If we have to do a final during a particular time, I will give you topics to write about at that time. If they don't do that, then we'll just do a regular essay whenever we make it due, like we have been doing all semester long. I don't know how it's going to work out for the finals period yet, but I will let you know either with a video or with or in an email. In the meantime, let's talk about these 2 poems, okay? A couple of weeks ago when we were in class, we did a couple of poems that dealt with love. What were they? They were a couple of poems, actually. One was How Do I Love Thee? Another one was The Red, Red Rose. One of them was called The Perfect Rose, again, using roses as a motif in the symbol. And then we looked at 2 other poems that were sort of lovish. 2 is Coy Mistress, about the guy who's just trying to talk the girl into being spontaneous and going to bed with him. And To the Virgins to Make Much of Time, which is also, one about beauty and love and all of that. Certainly the idea of love, if you like that topic, it certainly is a huge one. And it's not relegated just to poetry. Obviously, we can look at other pieces of work on this syllabus. Certainly, the plays, Trifles and Poof, deal with when love goes wrong and how we deal with that, which is another way of looking at it. Certainly, the love that Louise had for her husband in A Story of an Hour. How's that work? Certainly not the same kind of love that we're talking about here. The Sick Rose, also about, again with the rose, also about beauty or some sort of an illicit affair, and the way it's treated in that poem. Again, even if you're just having an affair and you lose your virginity in that poem, you might as well be dead because your life is ruined. I'm looking back on some of the other ones. That's it, I think, in terms of love that we've looked at. So let's look at these two then, okay? Let's look at Delight in Disorder. A strange little poem. And I have to say, when I first read this many years ago and when I was in college, it didn't do anything for me. It just didn't, I didn't get it, I didn't like it, you know. But as I got older, for some reason, this became really one of my favorites. Let me just read it first, and let's go through the vocabulary words. So this is in your textbook. Delight in disorder. A sweet disorder in the dress kindles in clothes a wantonness, a lawn about the shoulders thrown into a fine distraction, an erring lace which here and there enthralls the crimson stomacher, a cuff neglectful, and thereby ribbons to flow confusedly, a winning wave, deserving note in the tempestuous petticoat, a careless shoestring in whose tie I see a wild civility. Do more bewitch me than when art is too precise in every part. Vocabulary words. A sweet disorder in the dress. The dress meaning just in the outfit, what you're wearing. This is a man talking about a woman. The lawn about the shoulders is this, the scarf. It's a scarf, sort of carelessly thrown. It's sort of floating in the air, if you will, around her neck. The lawn is, again, the scarf. The crimson stomacher, that just refers to part of the blouse that she's wearing that's wrapped sort of tightly around her stomach. Ribbons, the rest of it's pretty clear. So what do we have here? In some ways, it seems to me that you can get the whole poem's meaning just from the title. He enjoys things that are not perfect. Meaning that sometimes we strive for perfection. And you can see this in modern day, people going on diets constantly, all kinds of eating disorders, coloring your hair, getting plastic surgery. The list is endless of things that try to make us perfect, whatever the hell perfect means. And so this is a poem that talks about how he prefers his woman, in this case a woman, slightly disheveled, as opposed to one who presents herself as perfect. Wanton, the word wanton there means unmoral, or immoral, I should say. Immoral, lewd, she's even a little racy, so she's not just like this proper woman being a good lady. She's as crazy as you are, and he enjoys that real quality of her. She's not pretending, she's not coy, as we mentioned in the other poem, to his coy witness, right? And even in the other poem by Herrick, the one about the virgins, she's not coy, she's open and honest, and there's something about the poem that sounds as if it's almost like a fetish, not a real fetish. I just mean that word in the sense that he's treating it as if you're going to think I'm crazy for liking this, but I do. And there's that, and that's all that is. I mean, just the idea of, And again, these kinds of poems asks us they ask us to be reflective about ourselves. What are we? Are we too demanding of ourselves, of our spouses, of the people who we like? Those of you who know about or are on the any of those dating sites, are we just too quick to swipe left or right because they're not perfect? And what are we looking for in terms of perfection anyway? So this is all. These topics are not just if you decide to write about something like this, or if these are one of the topics that I offer you. They're more about human nature. They're not necessarily about that particular poem. That poem becomes a discussion or an example of something in a larger idea that talks about human beings and how we deal with ourselves. Same thing goes for Shakespeare's "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun." Again, the word mistress here just means his girlfriend. We're not talking about mistress in the way we know about it in modern day, where somebody is having an affair. I mean, it could be that, but it doesn't need to be. There's also a word you should know. The word is hyperbole. Hyperbole, Hyperbole. You can look it up in the list of definitions at the back of the textbook. It means wildly exaggerating. I love you till the sun burns out of the sky. I love you more than all the grains of sand in the world. Over the top. We know how to use it. We ask our little children, how much do you love me? And they say this big. And, we want that kind of expression. It's not supposed to be real. It's supposed to be the idea that I love you a lot. Shakespeare decides that is silly. All of these things about, again, if you would imagine saying to your girlfriend, "My God, your eyes are like the sun." Try saying that sometime during the week to somebody you love. Just look them in the eyes and say, "Your eyes are like the sun." See what happens. Let me know on the discussion board. He's saying, no, she's not perfect. But that means that nobody's perfect. And basically, he just gives a list of a lot of her qualities that he says are not. He's using the hyperbole and saying, no, it's not that. So the first one, I have a list here. Let's just go through I'll sort of translate each line for you, all right? "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun." In other words, for those men who say your eyes like the sun, I'm going to say, no, not the sun. No, I'm sorry. Just no. "Coral is far more red than her lips red." The color coral, it's a color. You can look at it. It's in the ocean. He's saying, no, there is coral is more red than her lips. It's pretty self-explanatory. "If snow be white, then her breasts are dun." Dun just means brownish gray. And he's saying that her breasts are not white. I mean, God Almighty, can you imagine if they were absolutely white? Like this paper is white? That would be scary. But he says, no, they're not. They're not white. Don't call them white. They're not red, but they're not white. The real color is brownish gray, flesh color, right? "If hairs be wires, black wires grow from her head." They're not golden. It's just hair. She's got dark hair. They're not like white. They're just, "I have seen roses damask red and white." He's seen roses that aren't perfectly red or perfectly white. They're streaked. They're still beautiful roses, but they're not purely red or white or pink. "And in some perfumes there is more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks." In other words, there are certainly some perfumes that are better than when she has bad breath. "I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music has a far more pleasing sound." She's got a nice voice, but music is better. So it's not the greatest sound in the world. And I grant I never saw a goddess walk, he means. My mistress, when she walks, she treads on the ground. In other words, she's not floating in the air like a goddess. He just walks on the ground like I do. It's like those expressions, somebody thinks somebody's special and somebody says, well, so-and-so's not so. He puts his pants on one leg at a time like anybody else. That kind of ordinary quality to ground us in reality. Don't put people high on pedestals. It's almost like if any of you have ever met a celebrity, somebody you idolize, you find out or you notice that in so many ways, they're, when you meet them in person, they're sort of just like you and me. They eat and they walk and they talk and they've got regular clothes on and they don't, when you see them up on the movie screen, they're spectacular, but in person, sometimes they're shorter or they're taller or whatever than you thought they were. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with faults compare. And yet, I think my love is as rare as any woman who has been misrepresented by ridiculous comparisons. So he's suggesting don't exaggerate. It doesn't work. Your love is what's strong. That's what matters. All of the exaggerations about how much you love her don't matter at all. So, again, two poems that sort of bring us back to reality. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't think about our loved ones as being special, but we need to ground it in some sort of reality. So there are two poems that do that. And certainly there's other poems on the list that you can look at that might spark an idea. But, so there you go. So for the next one, read those three poems about war. One of them is in the book. The other two you'll find online. Okay, I have to depend upon you to find these online. They're very short and not hard to read. So please do this. And then we're coming back down to the end of it. I think after that there's just one short story by Kurt Vonnegut to read. And we'll move on from there. Okay, everybody? Peace. Take care.